So now we'll talk about the blood vessels, and they are just a tubular network that transports blood. And there's three types of blood vessels: the arteries, the capillaries, and the veins. The arteries, they have no valve. They have increased pressure on them because they come off of the left side of the heart, where the blood is being pumped harder to be delivered throughout the body. The veins is the structures that are bringing the blood back to the heart, and they have valves to them, one-way valves. So as the blood goes up towards the vena cava, the inferior vena cava, there is little valves that goes like that when the blood is pushed up through and can come back out. So it goes up like as if it was going up a ladder. Also, another thing about them, the difference between arteries and veins. Arteries, because of increased pressure to deliver blood through the body, has a lot thicker walls. And then veins have a thinner wall. And they also have a pump, so they don't need to have a lot of pressure. So they have decreased pressure while arteries have increased pressure. And the capillaries is where the gas is being exchanged. So if we had to list how does that work, we can say that from the heart, the blood goes to the arteries. From the arteries, it goes to smaller arteries that are like branched from the arteries that are called arterioles. From the arterioles to the capillaries. From the capillaries to the venules, which are just small veins that takes the blood back to the heart, and then veins, and then back to the heart. So now let's talk about the walls of the artery and veins. They have the inner layer that makes contact with the blood. It's called the endothelium. Then we have the middle layer, that's the smooth muscle, and it's a muscle that contracts also, and it helps with blood flow. So even though the arteries don't have a valve, they still have the smooth muscles, and the veins also get the help from the smooth muscles to go up to the heart. And then the connective tissue is the outer layer. So we say that the blood goes up to the heart, but then after it goes up to the heart, it has two circulatory pathways. One is the pulmonary, where the blood comes out of the right ventricle and goes to the lungs, and then the systemic, which would the whole body circuit, which would be coming out of the left ventricle and going to the body. So let me put a piece of paper under here. So the blood maintains homeostasis, it regulates the ions in the body, forms clots, transport heat, and transport hormones and nutrients. The blood is a connective tissue because you can think of connecting a nutrient that's made on the kidneys, or a hormone that's made on the kidneys and taken somewhere else. So it connects one place to another by delivery of nutrients. And the blood is made of plasma cells, and those plasma cells would be the liquid part of the blood, and formed elements. And the formed elements would be the solid part of the blood. The formed elements are the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. Another name for red blood cells are erythrocytes, and white blood cells would be leukocytes. And the platelets would be the cells that act when a clot needs to be made, needs to be formed. All those formed elements, they're made in the epiphysis of the bone, the long bones, the sternum and the hip bone. But I don't know if you guys remember from the skeletal system what epiphyses are. Epiphyses are, let's say that this is your femur. It's like a cartoon femur, but that's okay. This would be a femur. There you go. Right here, and this is the part of the femur that will be like attached to your hip bone. Right here, there is like a plate, a space where it allows it for growth, where bone grows up in here and down here, and it allows blood to, not blood, but bone to be elongated. Right here is where the epiphyses are. And inside of the bone, there's bone marrow, and there's stem cells, and these stem cells give rise to the red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets. So now let's talk about the percentages of blood composition. Water is 92%, plasma is 46 to 63%, proteins are 7%, and electrolytes are 1%. Now we'll compare white blood cells with red blood cells. So let's talk about the white blood cells first. The white blood cells, they're important for the immune system. They help to fight allergies and diseases and pathogens. So there's 5 types of white blood cells, or what we call leukocytes. And they are the eosinophil, the basophil, and the neutrophil. And all those 3 are granular cells, and granular will have to do with their structure. They have a granular nucleus, and they look granular. And then you have the agranular cells, which are the lymphocytes, the T cells and the B cells, and also the monocytes that are phagocytic cells, which means they go to places, they eat the microbes, and they spit them out. Okay, so now red blood cells. They carry oxygen bound to hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is a 4 subunit protein, so it's just a protein that has a lot of affinity for oxygen. Right on the middle of this protein, there is iron. And iron is what picks up the oxygen for the delivery in the body. The red blood cells will last 120 days. After that, the spleen and the liver will remove them from the body. And this word right here, erythropoiesis, is the mechanism used for red blood cells formation. And that happens because if you have low oxygen blood then in your circulatory system, then the kidneys will release a hormone that's called erythropoietin that will trigger the production of the red blood cells.